I caught my fiancé and cousin together. Instead of canceling the wedding, I invited 200 people to the premiere. I never thought I would be the villain in my own love story. But then again, I never thought the two people I trusted most in this world were capable of driving a knife so deeply into my back that I'd feel the cold steel in my chest. My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and up until exactly 7 days before my wedding, I thought I had won the lottery of life. My fiancé, who we will call Mark, was the kind of guy your mother prays you bring home. He was a pediatric dentist, volunteered at animal shelters, and looked at me with this sickeningly sweet adoration that made my friends gag with jealousy. We had been together for 4 years. We owned a beautiful house in the suburbs, complete with a wraparound porch and a golden retriever puppy named Barnaby. Then there was Chloe. Chloe is my first cousin. We are exactly 4 months apart in age, which meant we were raised more like sisters. But if we were sisters, we were the kind that constantly existed in a state of unspoken competition, mostly driven by her. If I got a B, Chloe had to get an A. If I dated a varsity football player, she had to date the captain. When Mark proposed to me with a stunning 2-carat oval diamond in Paris, I saw the flash of pure, unadulterated envy in Chloe's eyes before she masked it with a high-pitched squeal. Naturally, she was my maid of honor. Keep your friends close and your fiercely competitive cousin closer, right? The wedding was going to be the event of the decade for our family. 200 guests, a historic botanical garden venue, a custom-designed gown that cost more than my first car. I had spent 18 months meticulously planning every single detail. And then, exactly 1 week before the wedding, the illusion shattered. The discovery. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was stuck at my office, drowning in spreadsheets and pre-wedding anxiety, trying to finalize the timeline with our caterer. Mark had the day off. I missed our puppy Barnaby, so I casually opened the PetCam app on my phone. We had installed a little wide-angle camera on the bookshelf in the living room the week prior, because Barnaby had a habit of chewing the baseboards when left alone. I opened the live feed, expecting to see a sleeping ball of golden fur. Instead, I saw Mark. He was on our custom-ordered sectional sofa, and he wasn't alone. My breath hitched in my throat. I stared at my glowing iPhone screen, my brain desperately trying to rationalize the image. Maybe it's his sister. Maybe it's a client. Maybe I'm hallucinating from stress. But no, it was Chloe. I recognized the blonde highlights we had spent 5 hours at the salon getting touched up just 3 days ago. I watched, paralyzed, as they moved together in a tangle of limbs. Right there. In the home I spent months decorating. On the couch I picked out. My stomach plummeted, hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Bile rose in the back of my throat. My hands began to shake so violently that I nearly dropped my phone onto my desk. I scrambled to hit the record button on the app, my thumb slipping twice before it engaged. Then, the worst part happened. They stopped, out of breath, and sat up. The camera had a built-in microphone, and the audio was crystal clear. Chloe giggled, tossing her hair over her shoulder as she reached for her bra. God, we are so bad. If Sarah knew. Mark let out a low chuckle, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. The hair I used to run my fingers through. Sarah is too obsessed with her floral arrangements to notice anything right now. She literally cried over a peony yesterday. She's turned into a complete psycho. Chloe laughed louder, leaning in to kiss his neck. Well, you only have to deal with the bridezilla for 1 more week. Then you're locked in. Think you can survive a lifetime of her neurotic nagging? I'll survive, Mark sneered, pulling her back down onto the cushions. As long as you keep sneaking away at family dinners. I slammed my phone face down on my desk. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the sterile silence of my cubicle, feeling my entire reality dissolve into a pile of jagged ash. The man I was pledging my life to wasn't just cheating on me, he despised me. He thought I was a joke. And my own flesh and blood was the punchline. A normal person would have called him right then. A normal person would have driven home, kicked the door in, and thrown them both out into the street naked. A normal person would have called their mother, canceled the caterer, and spent the next month weeping into a tub of ice cream. But in that cold, fluorescent-lit office, something inside me snapped. A quiet, terrifying calm washed over my panic. If I canceled the wedding now, what would happen? I would be the tragic, jilted bride. My family would pity me. Mark would cry fake tears, blame cold feet, and slink away to protect his reputation. Chloe would play the comforting cousin, hiding her smirk behind a tissue. They would get away with it. They would spin the narrative. No. I had spent 18 months and $80,000 of my own hard-earned savings building a stage. I wasn't going to tear it down, I was going to use it. The agonizing week. The next 7 days were an exercise in psychological torture. I deserve an Academy Award for that week. When I walked through the front door that Tuesday evening, Mark was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, whistling a cheerful tune. He turned and gave me his signature dimpled smile. "Hey babe, how was the office? You look exhausted." He walked over and kissed my forehead. I had to dig my fingernails into my palms to keep from violently shoving him away. His skin felt like battery acid. "Just wedding stress," I lied, forcing my lips into a tired smile. "Everything is coming together, though." "You're doing great, sweetheart. Just one more week and then we're in paradise," he murmured, pulling me into a hug. I stared blankly over his shoulder at the living room sofa, my heart turning to absolute ice. Thursday was the dress fitting. Chloe met me at the bridal boutique. She hugged me tightly, smelling of the same expensive perfume she had been wearing on my couch. "Oh my God, Sarah, you're going to look so breathtaking," Chloe gushed as the seamstress pinned the final alterations on my lace train. "Mark is going to absolutely sob when he sees you walking down the aisle." I looked at her reflection in the full-length mirror. Her eyes were bright, innocent, and completely dead inside. "Do you think so, Chloe?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "I know so," she beamed. "He loves you so much." "You're so lucky." "We're all lucky," I replied, turning back to the mirror. "It's going to be a day everyone remembers for the rest of their lives." The rehearsal dinner on Friday night was the hardest. My father gave a speech that brought tears to my eyes, real tears. He talked about how proud he was of me, how he always knew Mark was the right man to protect his little girl. I looked across the table. Mark was nodding solemnly, looking deeply moved. Chloe was wiping away a fake tear. I drank 4 glasses of wine just to keep from leaping across the table and strangling them both with the linen napkins. Late that night, while Mark was sleeping soundly beside me, I slipped out of bed. I took my laptop into the guest bathroom, locked the door, and opened my video editing software. I had already downloaded the footage from the pet cam. The visual was damning, the audio was devastating, but I needed it to be perfect. I took the file meant for our romantic slideshow, a 10-minute montage of our childhood photos, our vacations, and our engagement set to Ed Sheeran's Perfect. I deleted the middle 5 minutes. In its place, I spliced in the security footage. I boosted the audio levels so every single cruel word, every mocking laugh, would echo off the walls of the reception hall. I saved it to a sleek, silver USB drive. I held it in my hand. It felt heavier than it was. It was a grenade with the pin already pulled. The wedding day. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. The weather was flawless. The irony was not lost on me. Getting ready was a blur of hairspray, champagne, and giggling bridesmaids. Chloe was constantly hovering, fixing my veil, touching up my lip gloss, playing the dutiful maid of honor to perfection. "You're trembling," she whispered, squeezing my hands just before the doors to the garden opened. "Don't be nervous. This is the start of your happily ever after." "I know," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "I'm just so excited for the reception." Walking down the aisle was an out-of-body experience. I linked arms with my father, the string quartet playing softly in the background. 200 faces turned to look at me, beaming with joy. And at the end of the aisle stood Mark, in his tailored tuxedo, wiping a perfectly timed tear from his eye. I felt nothing. No love, no grief, just a cold, hard anticipation. The ceremony went off without a hitch. We recited traditional vows. When Mark looked deep into my eyes and promised to be faithful, to love and cherish me in sickness and in health, I didn't flinch. I smiled warmly. When it was my turn, I promised to give him exactly what he deserved. He kissed the bride. The crowd cheered. We walked back down the aisle as husband and wife. The premiere. The reception space was breathtaking. Thousands of fairy lights hung from the vaulted ceiling of the botanical greenhouse. The tables were adorned with towering centerpieces of white roses and orchids. We did the grand entrance. We did our first dance. We cut the 4-tier cake. I smiled for hundreds of photos, pressing my cheek against Mark's, laughing at Chloe's jokes. I bided my time. At 9:00 p.m., the DJ took the microphone. "All right, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention directed to the main projector screen." His booming voice echoed through the hall. The bride has prepared a very special, surprise video presentation to celebrate the beautiful journey of Sarah and Mark. The lights in the greenhouse dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd of 200 guests. My mother leaned forward in her seat, clutching my father's hand. I stood at the sweetheart table, my hand resting lightly on Mark's shoulder. Chloe was seated just a few feet away at the head table, smiling eagerly. The massive 10 by 15-foot projector screen flickered to life. It started exactly as expected. A photo of Mark as a toddler in a cowboy hat. A photo of me missing my two front teeth. The crowd let out a collective "Owa." The Ed Sheeran music swelled romantically. The slideshow progressed to our college years, our first trip to the beach, our engagement in Paris. Mark squeezed my hand. "This is beautiful, babe." "Wait for it," I whispered. At exactly the 3-minute mark, the music abruptly cut out. The screen went black for a split second. When the picture returned, it wasn't a photograph. It was a high-definition, wide-angle video of my living room. The timestamp in the corner glowed bright red. Tuesday, 2:15 p.m., 5 days ago. At first, there was just confusion in the room. Why was there a video of an empty couch? Then, Mark and Chloe walked into the frame. The audio kicked in. It was deafeningly loud through the venue's massive speakers. "God, we are so bad." "If Sarah knew," Chloe's voice boomed through the silent greenhouse. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. It was a physical sound, a wave of shock that rippled through 200 people simultaneously. On screen, they collapsed onto the couch. Sarah is too obsessed with her floral arrangements to notice anything right now. She literally cried over a peony yesterday. She's turned into a complete psycho. Mark's voice echoed off the glass walls. I felt the muscle in Mark's shoulder beneath my hand instantly turn to stone. He froze, his head snapping toward the screen, his jaw dropping so far I thought it might detach. The silence in the room was absolute, save for the horrifying, unmistakable sounds of my fiancé and my cousin hooking up on the 50-foot screen. "Well, you only have to deal with the bridezilla for one more week. Then you're locked in. Think you can survive a lifetime of her neurotic nagging?" "I'll survive, as long as you keep sneaking away at family dinners." Pandemonium. My Aunt Linda, Chloe's mother, let out a blood-curdling shriek. "Chloe," she screamed, her chair clattering to the ground as she stood up in sheer horror. My father's face went purple. He stood up so fast he knocked his wine glass over, the red liquid staining the pristine white tablecloth like blood. I looked down at Mark. All the color had drained from his face. He looked like a corpse. He slowly turned his head to look at me, his eyes wide with a terror so profound it was almost beautiful. "Sarah," he choked out, his voice trembling. "Sarah, what is this? I can explain." I didn't let him finish. I calmly picked up my crystal champagne flute. I reached over with my left hand, slid the 2-carat oval diamond engagement ring and the brand new wedding band off my finger, and held them over his glass. I let go, clink. The rings sank to the bottom of the expensive champagne. I leaned down until my lips were inches from his ear. Over the rising screams of my family tearing into Chloe, over the absolute chaos erupting across the ballroom, I whispered calmly, "I survived. Enjoy the reception, Mark. You paid for half of it." I turned my back on him. I didn't run, I walked. I walked with my head held high, the heavy lace train of my custom gown sweeping across the floor. Guests parted for me like the Red Sea, staring at me with a mixture of absolute awe and utter terror. I walked straight out the double doors of the botanical garden. My pre-booked Uber Black was waiting at the curb, exactly as I had scheduled. The driver took one look at me in my massive wedding dress and raised an eyebrow. "Where to, miss?" he asked as I slid into the leather backseat. "The airport," I said, buckling my seatbelt. "I have a first-class flight to the Maldives to catch, and I really don't want to miss my honeymoon." As we pulled away, I looked out the tinted window. Through the glass walls of the greenhouse, I could see my father holding Mark by the lapels of his tuxedo. I could see Chloe backing away from her screaming mother. I leaned my head back against the seat, closed my eyes, and for the first time in a week, I let out a genuine, happy sigh.